Time to play Rayman 2. Yeah, I know, but I'm sure I can get through this one. I've heard way more positive things about Rayman 2 than Rayman 1. There is no way I'm gonna enjoy this game less than Rayman 1. You've gotta be kidding me. Rayman 2 Revolution. Revolution. Note that I played the PS2 remake of Rayman 2, which everyone seems to have pretty mixed feelings on. For all I know, none of the complaints I have about the game apply to the original version. I even read, which I hope is true, that this game even feels like a completely different game. Hold on, I own Rayman 2 for the N64, which is considered the best version of the game. Why didn't I play that version? I can't. It requires a controller pack to save, I bought an expansion pack, it was not what I needed. I saw Rayman 2 Revolution at a used game store for $8 and said, why not? That was the worst mistake of my life. Revolution adds a few new things, like a hub world, and updates the graphics and sound. Unfortunately, it suffers from atrocious load times, and that might be it. Personally, the load times didn't really bother me, and Google refuses to give me an answer on what else has changed, so it's all I can say for the negatives. Hey, remember Rayman 1 where you had to stop a caped villain residing in a palace of sweets while going through worlds made of band equipment and drawing utensils? Rayman 2 begins with Rayman being kept as a slave in a prison ship run by robot pirates. I mean, it's the next logical step. The plot I read off Wikipedia says Rayman is tasked with collecting the 4 ancient masks and giving them to Palokas to restore the world's power and defeat the robo-pirates. Rayman meets Glowbox in his cell and is given some of his powers back. Now let's talk about the characters, because they're probably my favorite part of the game. Nearly every character is charming, cartoony, and likable. Glowbox is basically the player 2 character of the Rayman series currently, but in Rayman 2 he has a much smaller role. He gets captured several times and you go and rescue him. That's it. I don't know how he keeps getting kidnapped. Why did the pirates even want him so bad in the first place? He's not exactly helpful. In this game only, Glowbox has a wife and 650 children. Which makes me wonder, how do 650 children just disappear? Glowbox, why have you said nothing about this? Glowbox, what did you do? The Teensies also make their debut here, and they really haven't changed too much over time. I like their noses, they're funny. Speaking of funny, Clark is this game's funny character. Not that he's actually funny, he's just a character I bring up for half the jokes in my review, like Wario Sephiroth or Zero. Lee the Fairy is here, and that's pretty much it. She does give Rayman new powers once in a while, but she doesn't do much herself. The villains aren't as interesting as the heroes. Razorbeard is a threat and has a decently cool design, but he's easily the weakest character. He doesn't have any personality and feels a bit out of place in this colorful world. Actually, I take that back. I don't think colorful is a good way to describe Rayman 2. The quality of the models looks fine, but the colors look plain ugly sometimes. This may be an issue with playing this on an HD TV, but everything also looked very dark. You're telling me that the character with no limbs who uses his hair to fly around belongs in a place that looks like this? I talked about the visuals, how about the music? I can't say anything about it, not for the usual reason that it's just good. I literally cannot remember a single track in the game. What I could actually hear was okay, but putting it anywhere near these three would be a giant lie. I think one of the reasons why is because the sound effects were too loud to hear the music. You could always turn the sound effects down, but that also turns the voices down, which I needed up because I couldn't hear them over the music, so there's no winning. By the way, the voice acting isn't bad, though I'd be perfectly fine without it. Returning from our long side talk, Rayman uses his powers to escape from the prison ship. A great escape, if you will. Get it? Why is it subtitled The Great Escape anyway? Rayman escapes in the first few minutes of the game. Revolution is honestly a more fitting title since he's rising up against the pirates who captured him. Rayman lands in the Woods of Light, where you get your first taste of platforming. As a platformer, Rayman 2 is solid. The 2D gameplay from Rayman 1 transitions beautifully into 3D. This is easily one of the most responsive platformers from the era. Rayman feels like Rayman, but in 3D, as it should be. He can float with his helicopter hair, swing on pink lums, the main parts of his moveset are still intact. Except he throws light orbs instead of punches this time. No clue why. I will say, what I've heard about the difficulty is accurate. This is one of the easiest platformers I've ever played. However, this game has combat, which is even easier. It's simple, which isn't inherently bad, but all you do is attack and jump. The issue is that, for the most part, every single encounter can be dealt with by moving left and right and mashing square to fire while locked onto the enemy. Just take a look at the pirate ambush, where you fight dozens of these guys in a row and all you have to do is fire and strafe for 10 minutes. I say for the most part because it doesn't work sometimes. Don't think it's because the enemies get harder, it's because the lock-on occasionally refuses to lock on. That's the purpose of the button, you'd think it would work. The camera overall could definitely be better. Sometimes it can't turn on areas where I can't see what's in front of me, sometimes it suddenly changes, making me die. I occasionally felt the hitboxes were a little odd too. I just didn't have a good time with it. Rayman 2 has a few bosses as well. They're better than the normal enemy encounters, but not by much. Their patterns are simple, and once you figure out what to do, you can probably beat them all without taking damage. I will say, the final boss looks pretty sick. And that wraps up the gameplay, so let's talk about how my opinion on the game changed throughout my playthrough. When it began, I thought Rayman 2 was great. Going through this forest, infiltrating a pirate ship, it was really fun. Despite that, as I progressed, it transitioned from a great game to a good game, all the way to what I'd consider bordering a bad game. But if the platforming is solid, the combat isn't awful, and the bosses are passable, what brings Rayman 2 down? Someone needs to ask the developers why they made a third of the game garbage vehicle segments. Yes, at least a third of the game has you doing things like riding on walking shelves with finicky controls or flying around hanging on a barrel in sections with way too little room to move comfortably. None of these are fun, and some are especially bad. The worst one might be, ironically, Rayman's helicopter hair. In the Lava Sanctuary, Lee grants Rayman the power to fully fly instead of just hovering. While I found this to be a fun gimmick in the first game, it was straight up frustrating here. You have to play near perfectly to not die in a reasonably long segment with no permanent checkpoints. To exemplify what I didn't like about Rayman 2, all you have to do is look at the Skull Cave, my absolute least favorite level in the game. Annoying ghosts will chase you around while you have to deal with stupid flying barrels, which, to be fair, isn't that bad here. Though there's also riding on barrels down the river, which sometimes the camera moves so you can't see what's coming at you. Oh, and one more thing, you have to do all of this in one go. Losing enough health means it's time to do it all over again. Okay, on a more positive note, the stage before the final mask, the Iron Mountains, is great. A lot of it is actual platforming with a couple cool segments, and it includes the only good vehicle part of the entire game. Rayman rides a walking shell around a gravity cube that works like something straight out of Mario Galaxy. I like this. After that, you rush out of the ship and jump across the bridge. Why couldn't they all be like this? Once all 4 masks are retrieved, Rayman gains enough power to enter the prison ship. Here you fly around on a shell, which is really cool, but it controls terribly. Whose idea was it to set the stabilizing to L2? You have an entire other stick for crying out loud. Just like the hair parts, you have to be extremely precise to dodge the obstacles. I spent over half an hour trying to beat this one part and I couldn't do it. As I alluded to earlier, I made it consistent. I didn't beat Rayman 2. Unlike Rayman 1, where you could argue I might not be able to give a final opinion when I still had 20% of the game to go, I made it all the way to the final section of the final level before the final boss. I have no problem saying Rayman 2 Revolution is my least favorite game I've played for the show yet. Mario Party 1 was worse, but I wouldn't call that experience a game. The Legend of Zelda at least had fun dungeons to navigate and an item system, and Rayman 1 even had fantastic visuals and music. I also think I'd like Rayman 1 if I use save states. Rayman 2 really doesn't have anything saving it. At its best, it's only good. I'm going to finish both of these games soon enough, and I'll make a video stating my final opinions on them. And I promise I will beat Rayman 3 for my review. I've already played that one and enjoyed it. Rayman 2 is a mostly good game turned unfun from a few problematic designs. It's sad to see my opinion on a game change for that reason. I haven't made another joke about Clark yet. Why did the Clark cross the road? There's no punchline. I have no idea what to say anymore. I was panicking writing the script because I had no idea how I wanted to end this video. Look, Wario!